What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here for the non-sports card / comic book weekly market update. Missed last week's, replaced it with a New York City Comic Con wrap up. I was obviously at NYCC last weekend, so content schedule got thrown off a little bit, but we are back this week and on schedule. Once again, New York City Comic Con, absolutely fantastic time. It was tough to get like market vibes from the comic. We're going to talk a little bit more comic books this week. On the comic book side of things, because one, that place is just so freaking busy, and most of the dealers aren't really realistically priced at a convention like that. And I kind of knew that going in. I kind of talked about it. I did not bring, I had cash on me, but I did not go to that convention looking to, like, air quote, make plays on CGC slabbed books or anything crazy like that. I was going more for the corporate experience, if you want to call it that, and hanging out with some friends, hitting a couple panels, that sort of stuff. The only regret that I have is not doing more time, or really any time, in Artist Alley. We didn't manage to make it down there on Thursday, and then Friday we were gonna head down there and it was just packed. So we ended up not even going down because Artist Alley was on a completely separate floor. I would have actually, I know it's caught a lot of flack this week. I wouldn't have mind getting a book signed by Peach. I really, really like Peach Momoko covers, and I picked up the Carnage exclusive one. I would not have taken like 10 books to get signed or anything crazy like that. I would have just taken the one or two that I bought. I would not have mind getting those signed, but I as crazy as it sounds, I don't like going to these conventions and then standing around waiting in line for things. I try to minimize it as much as possible, which is kind of a nature of the beast when you go to these things. But I try to limit it as much as possible and just walk the show floor and take that aspect of it as, yeah, you got to wait in line to get your badge. Yeah, I waited in line at the Marvel booth. Yes, we waited in line to get in a Critical Role panel. But I just don't want to jump from line to line to line to line. It's not why I'm there. But I understand that's what a lot of people do. It's what you got to kind of have to get the con exclusives. So let's dig into some comic book pricing off the top here. That's kind of what I want to focus the beginning of this on. And then we'll kind of mix in a few other little things here towards the middle and end of the video, talking about some Marvel cards and stuff and a little bit of Magic the Gathering. Shout out to Automatic Comics. I would consider him a friend of the channel. He's never been on the channel before, but we have live streamed together in the past over on Swaggle Haas's comic book channel a couple different times during his Illuminati roundtables, and had some discussions through Instagram and stuff. So I would definitely consider him a friend of the channel. Oh, and by the way, I should mention, if you want to hear me talk a lot of comics, last Thursday, Swaggle Haas did a live stream, and I popped on as a guest and chatted with him and Como and a couple other guys for a while. Just about New York City Comic Con wrap up and just general state of the market type stuff, picking my brain for what's going on the sports card side of things and kind of how that could filter over. But back to this, Automatic posted this on IG actually about a week ago, showing prices for AF-15. AF-15 is in the Marvel side of things anyways, the absolute gold standard S tier, number one, doesn't get any better than this book. And it's a book I cited a lot when Marvel PMGs were going really crazy. And I said, would you rather buy the Marvel PMG or would you rather buy an AF-15? I always came down on the AF-15 side. And it, just like everything else, is not immune to corrections. We've seen this on the sports card side a ton, where these big high-priced cards, 86 Fleer, Jordan, LeBron Topps Chromes of various shapes and sizes, all this different, you could pick any number of things that got spiked way up, have pulled back. AF-15, not immune to this. These ended on October 9th, about a week ago. This is a CGC 5.5, went for $55,000. Over here, Ryan points out that this peaked at $120K earlier this year. So that is a more than 50% drop from its all-time high. So you're obviously taking a bath on that, just about like everything else. I'm not surprised that this pulled back. I am a little more surprised that this pulled back as far as it did. I guess I shouldn't be, given what we've seen in the sports card side of things. that this has come down 50%. Now, that being said, it coming down, I guess it's more like 60%. This coming down that much has actually held up better than a lot of other things. Like Marvel PMGs are obviously way down, or down way more than that. A lot of sports cards are down way more than that. Hell, a lot of other comic books are down way more than that. So this thing actually maintaining that much value kind of speaks to the significance of it. There was a second sale as well, a lower grade. This is a CGC 3.5 for $26,000. And that peaked at $45K. So not quite a 50% drop on the lower grade there. And I think that also comes back, we talk about this in sports cards as well. And don't get me wrong, $26,000 is a ton of money. You can get a decent car for that price to get you around town. So it's not like this is a trivial sum, but it's still a lot less than 50 or 60K. And in these lower grades of these Grail-like books, and once again, we see the same thing in sports cards, as the prices come down on them, it actually opens you up to a larger buyer pool. So to a degree, I actually think the lower price stuff on these grades is almost, I don't want to say better protected, but it has a little bit of a higher floor in it because you begin to drop down, you open up your buyer pool, and then the demand increases because your buyer pool's opening up. When you're talking 50K compared to 26K, you just have less buyers at that number, especially in the current market that we're in right now. But this just shows not, even the Grail of Grail Marvel books is not immune to what is going on in the general collectibles world and the world that itself and everything else going on. That even this book, as massive as it is not immune to these pullbacks. That leads me into the next topic I want to talk about. And I've talked about this before, very specifically with this book. We're going to use this and another one as an example. This is ASM 101, first appearance of Morbius. Obviously, Morbius came out. Movie was meh. I haven't even had a chance to watch it yet. I'm just going by word of mouth on it, is that it's just kind of meh. Some people think it's really bad. Some people think it's just okay. Whatever the case might be, the general narrative is that it's not great. But I wanted to use this book because it makes a good example of kind of what I am actively looking for right now, besides just books that I want. I am always looking at X-Men keys as long as the price is relatively correct on it. But there are other certain things, these silver and bronze age keys that if they overcorrect, I am looking to get potentially into them. And once again, I don't own a 101, and the next book we're going to talk about, I don't own either. So I'm not trying to pump anything here. But I just want to kind of show you my thought process of what I'm looking for on stuff like this. This is the GPA chart on 101. This is a 9.0. Last sale in October for this was $12.40, so about $12.50. You can see 15, 16, 13, 1260, 1400. So kind of what I want to look for here is this right here. You see how this is kind of fully reset? We have the jump up from the movie announcement, the jump up from the general comic boom, and then the correction on the backside. But this before all the big jumps in price. So we see here January 31st, 2021, this book averaged about $1,400. If you go back further than that, this is mid 2022, averaging about $1,200. You can see that this book kind of sat at $1,200 from, what is this? 5/31/2018. It was $1,000. Once again, 2018. And then it kind of slowly ticked up from there all the way to the beginning of 2021. And then it really spiked up because of the movie and the general comic book boom. Now we're seeing this price back down. Last sale, $1,240. Prior to that, average sale, $1,400. Prior to that, $1,250. And that number's kind of reflected in here. We see a $1,400 in May, a $1,250 in June, a $1,350 in June, a little outlier sale here in July, and then this most recent one in October at $1,240. I love seeing this price on the flip side of the peak and the fall line up with around what it was at prior to all the nonsense. To me, just based off this alone, 101 is on my radar, especially if it overcorrects. If this price dips below this trend line that we had here, now it's really on my radar. So anytime I see a 101 posted, I do most of my comic book shopping on Instagram, actually, over eBay. And I also check out My Slabs pretty frequently as well. But I just find the eBay stuff, unless you're floating an auction, you're most likely not going to get a great deal on it. So I either wait out an auction or I look to see if someone's kind of liquidating on my slabs or from some of the big IG sellers. And there's plenty of other comic book platforms out there that you could buy and sell from as well, much like sports cards. Or Shortbox is pretty good. I have that app installed that I glance at on occasion as well. But regardless of the book, take Spider-Man 101 out of it. If it's a bronze or silver aged key and I'm seeing this, I'm at minimum intrigued. And, whether they use Morbius again or not, I almost don't even really care. In this case, once you see this, then you need to evaluate it for the merits of the book itself. But this is now on my radar because Spider-Man 101 is a key Spider-Man book, regardless of movie nonsense. There's always going to be some amount of demand there because it's a Spider-Man key. And if I could get it for what it was going for pre-nonsense, I'm intrigued. The second example of that is the first appearance of Shang-Chi. Marvel Special Edition 15, Master of Kung Fu, first appearance of Shang-Chi. I actually kind of liked the movie. It got a little weird in some parts, but generally speaking, like the fighting and stuff and the rings, I thought all looked really cool. And he's 100% going to be back in the MCU again, whether it's his own movie or as part of an Avengers team or whatever. The reason I'm citing this one, once again, I do not own a copy of this, is the exact same thing that we were talking about on 101. If you go back to early 2018, this book was obviously dirt cheap. It got a run up because of movie spec, kind of dipped back down again. So you can see here, early 2020, 2019, average price $820, $800, $900. Then it starts to tick up again. And then it goes wonky in 2021, like most things did with the comic boom and COVID spikes and all that other nonsense. Now we're seeing it, and this is a 9.4 of this book. So this is a pretty high grade when you consider that this is, I believe, 1973. Now, you don't see a recent sale here. This is September at $1,300. Prior to that, August $1,700. The reason, while I was in the middle of researching for this video, a 9.4 off-white actually ended at auction just 40 minutes ago. Ended for $1,000. So you're talking about a 9.4 at $1,000. You're real close to in range of where this dip was post movie announcement. $800-900 for 9.4. Even at $1,000, I actually almost bid on this for this price. Now, does it have room to continue to go down? Yes, absolutely. The whole world's in turmoil right now, and collectibles are very unknown at this point. But I just like the idea of potentially some of this stuff overcorrecting. This one's not there yet, but it is flirting with that line. So this is another one that is now on my radar of when I see this pop up on an IG sale or something like that, I'm intrigued, or at least asking a question or going and looking a little bit closer at the census count to see, where the grade kind of peaks at and starts back down on the downward slide. That's what you usually like to try to buy at whatever that highest census count number is. I like to be there or a better grade, depending on price point. Obviously, you can't always do that. So this, once again, if you're just doing research into comics, I really like this as a guide mark for if something's starting to touch this pre-nonsense spike. At least put it on your radar, do a little bit more digging. There might be an angle to kind of dig in there. Sorry we spent so much time on that, but I just kind of wanted to walk through my process of how I potentially target things to go after. Let's pop over and look at some Marvel cards really quick. Spider-Man Metal Box update. Prices still flat since the last time we looked at them. Basically, hobby boxes are sitting right at $600. They're on Dave & Adams for $650 to give you an idea what the secondary retail market's charging for them. And blaster boxes also have not moved. This is a 30-day graph of both Marvel hobby boxes or Spider-Man hobby boxes and blasters. They haven't moved at all. A minus 2.5% change on hobby boxes and a 0.5% change on blasters. Blasters have been sitting at $45, a relatively fair markup. I feel like they're $30 retail. If someone does all the legwork for you, paying $45 for that feels fine. If you just want to have the fun rip, we've mentioned that a million times on the channel. We'll see where things go from here. You know, it's interesting now that epack has sold out. We'll see if things start to tick up a little bit. But really, once again, just given the general market trends right now in collectibles across the board, the fact that this is just holding steady is almost a win. But now inventory will start to dry up a little bit more. So we'll see if the price starts to swing or if it holds right at this 600 number. I believe this is about what X-Men metal boxes go for. This is a much better product, but there was a lot more of these printed compared to X-Men metal. So it makes sense that their prices would be pretty equal, even though most people would rather rip Spider-Man metal than X-Men metal. Other big thing of the week in the Marvel card world is Liddy Lee sketch cards. Now, I am not the biggest sketch card person in the world. This kind of kicked off right here. Liddy Lee is one of, for those that aren't aware, I don't want to go too deep into this because this is a little out of my knowledge space. But generally speaking, Liddy Lee stuff always carries a pretty big premium in the sketch card world. She's one of the premier artists. She's very, very popular. Very, very cool art style. And she has some pretty major characters that she does on occasion. This was posted. This is a Ghost Spider, Spider-Gwen, whatever you want to call her. Liddy Lee sketch card that went up for $3K. I was actually talking to the seller on this. It's someone that I've bought stuff from in the past. When he first showed it off on IG, I was kind of interested in it. And then he told me some of the offers that he was getting on it. And I was like, yep, not going that high on it. Because I do PC Ghost Spider / Spider-Gwen. I have a lot of her cards and comic books. And then I ended up going for $2K OBO. And he said, and once again, I believe the seller on this. He doesn't have really any reason to lie to me. He had a ton of offers on it that he was going back and forth on. Very high dollar offers that he was going back and forth on it. This kind of set off a wave of her stuff. This one went for $2K. And if I scroll down here, you see a lot of her stuff. Not a ton of sales because her stuff does not come up often. Here's a Silk. This is a 3-panel that went for $2K. A Mystique at $750. Doc Ock at $350. Usually the female characters sell for a lot more. But then this Ghost Spider went for $2K. A Carnage for $1,300. Venom actually seems pretty cheap by comparison at $525 Canadian. There's an Emma at $1,100. And then we have a really nice looking Dark Phoenix at $2K. Really, really like the way that looks for Marvel Anime. Then the same seller had this Black Cat, also an absolutely fantastic image. This ended up going for $2,700 on bids. Absolutely great looking card, and Black Cat has a huge following. So I got a question in a video a few weeks ago about, what drives sketch card market. Actually, it looks like that Venom got relisted and sold for about the same price. And I do know that both these, the Black Cat and the Ghost Spider, I know the Ghost Spider was paid for. I believe the Black Cat was paid for as well. But I got a question about what kind of drives the sketch card market. And it really comes down to the artist, the image, and the character. Liddy Lee is a popular artist. Now you're talking about her with popular characters like Black Cat, Dark Phoenix, Ghost Spider, and really, really good artwork on it. That's going to drive prices and demand. There's been a lot of Liddy Lee talk in a lot of the Facebook groups that I'm in this week. So that's just kind of something that kind of spiked off. I think what happened was, and we see this a lot, this one sold for a high price. Then they kind of came out of the woodwork. We're like, well, if that went for that, I got all these ones I've been sitting on. I'm going to go ahead and move these and, maybe cash out of some of them. So then we saw this Dark Phoenix sale and then this Black Cat sale. And I've seen some others move in some of the Facebook groups and stuff like that I'm in. Here's a Magic that went as well for almost $2,000. So Liddy Lee stuff is 100% on the move. Next up, an interesting one to track. This is not final sale yet, but this red Spider-Man PMG has come up in auction. This is probably the most popular of the Spider-Man images from Spider-Man Metal when it comes to PMGs. This one consistently sells for the most. There's like 3 or 4 different choices in Spider-Man Metal, but this one has always sold for the most and continues to sell for the most. What's going to be intriguing here to watch is, and we'll talk about this next week actually, because both these will have ended. This one came up in a CGC 9 with subgrades. So this one is running at auctions. It's currently at $810. It ends Friday night. This one also came up. Same image, PSA 8. This one ends Saturday evening. So it'll be very intriguing to see how these shake out. Direct comparison, not a direct comparison, but a good comparison on two high-end cards. Same image, very popular PMG. What do these end up finishing at? Does the 9 drastically outsell the PSA 8? With it being in a CGC slab, do they end pretty close together? Do they both do way more than raw? Tons of different angles we could kind of take on this once it shakes out. To give you a comparison, the last raw that I could find that sold was this one on October 9th at 3K. So obviously the market could shift a little bit from that last comp. The cheapest one available that I could find was $3,300. There is a $3,300 one sitting at best offer buy it now on eBay, and that's for a raw one, and I didn't look at the condition that close. But regardless, these two ending a day apart could potentially give us some interesting data, at least on the high end, for how the CGC stuff is being respected. I tried to dig into it on the low end, like 90 MU and some of the other stuff, but to be quite honest, things are still kind of a little all over the place. It really hasn't established itself yet. There's still really only a few hundred sales of CGC graded Marvel cards out there, so the sample size is extremely small, but this will be an interesting one to track and follow on the high end. I was going to talk a little Magic the Gathering today, but we're kind of running along. Basically, the big news on that side is that Earthbind is going crazy. A really old Alpha Beta card, basically just because of the artwork. Rudy from Alpha Investments has been talking about it a ton, and anyone that follows that space knows exactly what I'm talking about. Essentially, it has some provocative artwork that Wizards no longer wants to use and really hasn't been using it for years. So it's kind of like shadow banned, essentially. So it got a pretty big run up this week. It tied in with the announcement of their new anniversary product that's going to be $1,000 for 4 packs for basically, alpha and beta reprints. I think I haven't really dug into the full checklist. It's not a product that I'm interested in. I have not bought any other sealed wax for the MTG standpoint other than the case of Double Masters, but I am intrigued by Dominaria United. Collector's boxes have really gotten pretty cheap. They're down to about $200 a box right now. So I'm a little bit intrigued by that, and I'm looking at a couple other things on that side as well. But just quickly touch on that, and we'll go ahead and wrap the video up there. Smash the like button if you have it. Any questions or comments, leave them down below, and we will catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.